Hey friends, welcome back to Christian Podcasting Secrets. I'm your host, Tammy Munson, and I am so excited that you are joining me again today. So today we're tackling a big question: how to find your podcasting voice. Now, this isn't just about how you sound. It's about embracing your unique personality, connecting with your audience, and letting your message shine. So without further ado, let's dive in. Now, friend, have you ever heard of someone refer to their voice as their podcasting voice? Now, my daughters tell me they hear it all the time. Sometimes I hear myself doing it in coaching calls or in masterminds. But seriously, your podcast voice is so much more than the sound of your voice. It's your tone and your style and how to make your audience feel what you're trying to convey. Makes your show uniquely you. So when I talk to a lot of podcast launch clients or coaching clients, they feel like their show needs to be like other people, and that's just not the truth. In actuality, you don't need to sound like anyone else, and you don't want to sound like anyone else. You need to be you, the authentic you, the version of you that everybody else sees, not some persona that you take on. Because when you lean into what God created you to be, that authentic self, your voice becomes a bridge that connects your message to your listeners' hearts. So let me share a quick story with you. One of my coaching clients, Ashley, is launching a podcast about faith and motherhood in the next few months. Now, early on in this process, she worried that her voice was not as exciting enough. She was concerned that people weren't going to listen because she didn't have a quote-unquote podcaster voice. It didn't sound smooth and velvety and all the things. So because of that, we started doing a number of things. We started practicing, spent a lot more time in front of her microphone. And as she relaxed, it allowed for her personality to shine through. She got much more comfortable talking into the mic and also talking to her audience as she develops these episodes. What we did do, and early feedback from her test audience, which were people that she knew and trusted that were in that same target audience. That feedback showed her that they loved her voice. They loved her calm, reassuring style. And it felt like a safe place for them to land during the chaotic days of motherhood. Because your voice is an essential part of your podcast's identity. It's the tool that you use to create connection and trust, but most importantly, impact. So ask yourself, how do you want your listeners to feel when they hear you? Do you want them to be inspired, uplifted, motivated, maybe even challenged? Because there are a lot of podcasts out there, which means there's a lot of podcast voices. But no two voices are exactly the same. Because God designed your voice and my voice and everybody else's voice with a specific purpose in mind. And that, my friend, is something to celebrate. So let's look at another client of mine. Her name is Sarah. And so Sarah thought her voice was too deep and scratchy for podcasting. But guess what? Her voice, with its deepness, became her signature. Her audience loves her voice, loves the authority and the calmness that it brings to her Parenting Teenagers podcast. So if you've ever doubted your voice, I want you to remind yourself that it's uniquely yours. There's nobody else that has the same voice as you. And I guarantee you, there is an audience waiting to hear from someone exactly like you. So why do we say that finding your own voice is important? Well, because you don't want to sound like everybody else out there. You want your show to be different. Because audiences don't look for perfection in audio. They're looking for connection. Yeah, you want to make sure that there's good audio quality, and you want to make sure that you're using the right tools. And there's some editing needs and the needs and the wants of the audience. Ultimately, they're looking for connection and answers. And they don't want to hear a copy of Lisa Bevere or Jenny Allen or Beth Moore. And those are some of my favorite Christian podcasters, by the way. Because if they want to hear that, they can go listen to Lisa and Jenny and Beth. Your tone, your style, your delivery needs to align with your message. So if your podcast is about encouragement and hope, your voice should reflect warmth and personality. If you're diving into deep theological discussions, a Bible study, you want a more reflective and thoughtful tone might resonate better. But no matter the tone and the style, it needs to be authentic, 110%. Because here's the thing that I can tell you for sure. When you're true to yourself, your audience is going to feel it, and then they'll keep coming back for more. So how do you find your voice? There's a couple of things that you can do. Number one, as always, I think I'm going to get like a mug or a sticker or something that says this. Know your audience. In order to find the voice that you want, the style, the tone, all those things, you've got to know who your audience is and what they want. So if you don't know that, you need to go back and do that. So once you know your audience, who are they? What are they going through? What are their needs and their wants? And what solutions can you provide them to make their day better? And all of these things helps shape the tone and the message. Another thing, practice, practice, practice. I know it's an old cliche, but the more you practice, the better you get. Now, I remember one of my coaches when I was younger telling me that all the time. The more you practice, the better you get. And the same thing goes for podcasting. The more you record, the more natural your voice will feel. You want to experiment with tone and pace and delivery until you find what feels right, what feels like you. Another little pro tip here is a lot of times it's hard for us to evaluate our own voices. You want to reach out to a trusted friend who fits into your target audience. Asking your mom or your sister or your cousin or your girlfriend from when you were in elementary school is great. But you want to make sure that the feedback that you're getting is really good feedback and not just because they love you. You could also ask listeners for their feedback on what they hear in your tone and your style, because most listeners are more than happy to give feedback. I get notes all the time. Now, the other thing that a lot of people don't think about is that your mindset can influence your voice as well. If you're nervous, you're doubting yourself, you're struggling with imposter syndrome, whatever it may be, it's going to come through in your tone. So a lot of times when new podcasters and I start working together, we're launching their podcasts, this is one of the first things that we have to work through. They are overthinking every word. And as they start to record, their voice sounds stiff and unnatural because they're trying to be perfect. And nobody's perfect. And your voice doesn't need to be perfect either. The problem is it's not them. It's not who they are. Their personality is not showing through at all. So when we focus in, then everything starts to change. As we deal with some of the mindset things and the imposter syndrome things, and we start to kind of loosen up a little bit. We need to pray about it because mindset, like stories, they matter. It can break down walls. So if you're struggling with this, I want you to pray for confidence. I want you to trust in God's purpose for your voice. And I want you to let go of the perfectionism. Now, I know it's easier said than done. I get it. We all deal with imposter syndrome, even those of us that have been working in podcasting for 20 years. There's always something. But I want you to let it go or work on letting it go and just be you. Now let's talk about some practical ways that can help you refine your voice. One thing that I notice most often is that people tend to speak too fast. They start talking like this and they're really, really fast. No. Because when you're nervous, our brain starts to try to make it better and we speak faster trying to get it over with. This is also very common when you are reading a script. Slow it down, pause. It allows people to fill in the gaps themselves and think about what you're saying and create the impact that you desire. Another tip that I got from an actual vocal coach is to smile when you speak. Because again, this is one of those brain things that I just think is so fascinating, that when we smile, we make our tone warmer and more inviting. Even if you're just doing audio, smile while you're doing it. And then the other thing is use those stories because it helps create that connection that you're trying to make with your listeners. And it's going to make episodes more memorable, more impactful, more authentic. So one of the other things that I wanted to mention is that in podcasting, we have lots of tools and resources. We've got tons of different microphones to choose from. We've got AI. We've got things like Riverside and Descript and Zoom and all these tools. But the greatest tool in your arsenal in podcasting is your voice. So you need to make sure that you're taking care of it. You need to make sure that you stay hydrated. If you know me personally, I am not one who is the most hydrated person. But when it comes to recording, absolutely. When I'm recording, I have a water bottle on my desk through the whole thing. And staying hydrating keeps your voice strong. So one of the other things, and I may get notes for this, is we need to avoid caffeine and dairy before recording. So if you know you're recording first thing in the morning, no caffeine or dairy the night before or the morning of. I know. Now, what I do is I record in the evening. So I take several hours before I hit record. No caffeine, no dairy. I say dairy because dairy produces more mucus, and that also affects the quality of your voice. And then the other thing is to warm up your voice. There's simple exercises that you can do. You can do a whole Google search on that, but usually do like humming or lip trills to kind of get my voice ready to go. Because when your voice is healthy and strong, your episodes will sound consistent and you're going to avoid vocal strain or even vocal fatigue. Now, one little caveat to this is, and I did this myself just a couple of weeks ago, sometimes we get sick and sometimes our voice sounds like, we've been smoking for 30 years. That's okay. That's completely understandable. And it's perfectly okay to put out an episode where your voice is not 110%. I did it just a few weeks ago. But for most things and most episodes, we want a strong, healthy voice. But at the end of the day, you need to make sure that your voice is yours and yours alone. If you're struggling with some of the mindset, put in the work on that stuff. There are wonderful coaches out there, podcasting coaches, life coaches. Sometimes it's therapy, to be totally honest. Sometimes therapy helps us work through some of the trauma that we've been through, well, whether it's big T trauma or quote unquote little trauma that's stopping us from doing something. But we need to be true to who we are. Because like I said, God gave you a unique voice for a reason. And I guarantee you that there is an audience out there waiting to hear it. So that's a wrap on today's episode, my friend. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you feel inspired to embrace your voice and share the message that God has placed on your heart. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love if you would share it with a friend or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It truly means the world to me. So thank you. But until next time, I want you to keep showing up, keep speaking boldly, and remember that your voice and your story matters more than you know. I'll talk to you next Wednesday. Bye, y'all.